Hello everyone and welcome back to Chapter 13, Social Work with U.S. Casualties of Wars in the Middle East. This is Part 2. I want to continue on, talking a little bit more about some of the emotional trauma that soldiers face who specifically have been in combat zones and have served. One of the things that is difficult for you, possibly you, unless you are a veteran of war, or myself, and I'm not a veteran, is to have any kind of an idea what it is like being in combat. My father and my uncles all served in various wars. World War II, my uncle was part of the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, and fought in many key battles. My uncle in the Korean War, my father at Okinawa. And I've had friends who also have fought in the Vietnam War and in the current wars that we're in. But even just hearing from them still cannot convey the dynamic of what goes on during war. And while we may say we're going to war for many different reasons, to free a people, to spread democracy or whatever, the only thing I've really heard from those within my family and my friends is that in the fight, you're fighting for your friends who are there with you, and you're fighting for yourself. You're not fighting for some great democratic ideals or a new free market economy or to free people from a tyranny or dictatorship. In those awful moments, you're fighting to stay alive. And there's a bond that is created by those who share that kind of experience that you and I and anyone else who hasn't been in it cannot comprehend or understand. Therefore, it makes it difficult, too, to understand the impact of being in a situation like that. I remember a story my grandmother told me. One day, my cousin and I were upstairs in the attic bedroom, just exploring around, and we found in this old chest, we found a military uniform that was cleaned and pressed and put away in a plastic bag. And we found a little chest, opened it up, and we saw some medals in it. So we went downstairs to ask grandmother what this was. And she said, well, your uncle was in World War II, and he was in the 101st Airborne Division. But on the day he came home, he was wearing his uniform. He took it off. He asked me to clean it, to put it away. He gave me the box with the medals, and he said, never ask me about this. And so there are those who want to share what happened with them, and then there are those, like my uncle, who never wanted to speak about it again. You have a wide variety of how people are impacted and how they respond when they return. We're asking people in our armed forces to kill people. Now, of course, we're saying the reasons why they need to kill people. And it's killing that we sanction or that we approve by the state. When someone in the armed services who's under orders, following orders, and is fighting and killing other people, they're not punished for it. They may in fact be praised. They may even in fact receive, some medals for that. But make no mistake about it, we're asking one of our fellow human beings, our brother, our father, our mother, someone we might know, we're asking them to take on that responsibility to kill other people. I want to read you another quote from one of the soldiers. Again, I want to just remind you that these are actual real quotes, but people's names, real names, are not included to protect their identity. But this is one of those things that happens that we need to understand, that the trauma that can occur. It may not seem like it feels like it at the moment that things happen because you're doing what you need to do, what you've been ordered to do, or you're doing what you need to do to survive and protect your life and the life of your comrades. Well, here's this soldier. He said that I was a helicopter door gunner in Iraq. My job was to kill enemy soldiers on the ground. That's his words. Now, here's mine. I'm going to read you some more of his, too. Think about that. That's his job. Your job, may be to sell clothes at Sears. My job may be teaching. His job was killing the enemy on the ground. Not killing everybody, not killing just anybody who walks around. I mean, it was defined. But his job was killing people, the enemy, specifically the enemy, on the ground. One day when we came across a band of rebels, they started shooting at our helicopter. I returned fire, knowing that I would kill at least some of them. My words now, of course, that was his job. Kill them. Okay, back to his words. After the battle, we landed to do a body count. Among the dead were a young woman and her baby. As we flew back to base camp, I felt like I was dying inside, one piece at a time. Things have never been the same since that day. Those were his words. Now, did he do anything wrong? No. He did his job. His job was to kill the enemy on the ground. Those rebel soldiers, in fact, started firing on his helicopter. So besides it being his job, he was also defending his ship, helicopter ship, and his own life and the life of everybody aboard. It was the rebels who chose to have a woman with her baby walking with them. That wasn't his fault either. So he had no fault. He had done nothing wrong. But nonetheless, even if a soldier is serving, under a command and under an order, and even in a situation where they might be serving their life, sometimes they might have to do things, or as the result of what they do, still, plays a significant role in impacting their mind and their spirit. He felt like he was dying a little piece at a time. And his last line there, things have never been the same since that day. So whether it's a good war or a just war, or whose fault it was, or who should have done something or not done something, when something happens, the reality is the same. And so as these people come back, part of the role of social work, which we'll talk a little bit more in ensuing videos here, is to work with these soldiers, help them to integrate back into their families here, and then also into society. Now another conflict comes up too, sometimes between people's beliefs and values. Another example is that is given. This is when here's the soldier's words himself. I grew up in the church. I learned that harming others was a mortal sin. I remember one day when my unit was preparing for battle, a preacher stopped by our tent to pray with us. He asked God to protect us and keep us safe. Then he told us to go out there and kill those bastards. His comments really confused me. He sanctioned behavior that is in direct conflict with what I spent the first 18 years of my life believing. It really messed me up. Now I question if God even exists. I also worry about my soul. If there is a God, am I doomed to hell because of what I did in Iraq? Again, this is one individual soldier. Many soldiers are over there. Not all of them have been raised in the church. Not all of them would even necessarily believe in a God. But this particular soldier, and probably many are like him, was raised in a church, does believe in God. So there's this conflict, this moral and religious conflict. that they're going through. We need to be aware of that. And then the third thing I wanted to mention and point out is what's referred to as survivor's guilt. Those kinds of situations where um, other people around you die and you don't, and you survive. Some veterans are struggling with that as well. Here's one more story. My buddies and I were driving supply between two base camps. My truck was scheduled to take the lead, but the other driver begged me to let him go first. He was new in the country and wanted to prove himself. I said yes against my own better judgment. We were on a narrow road with a steep ravine on one side. The truck in front of me hit a mine. All I could do is watch in horror as the truck plunged over the cliff. Bodies were everywhere. I stopped my truck as we scrambled down the cliff to rescue survivors. There weren't any. We ended up collecting dead bodies instead. If I had refused to let the new guy lead the way, this wouldn't have happened. It's a hell of a burden to carry around each day. That's the soldier's words. Now, he obviously had some kind of authority in terms of the order of those trucks, but I'm sure it was an unusual thing for a new guy in the unit, kind of wanting to build up his reputation, show that he's not afraid. I'll take the lead. And then here's what happened. Now, if that other truck with the with the leader in it would have hit that and gone over the cliff, the result would have been the same. But because in this instance, he allowed that other guy, which would have happened probably at some point, for the new guy to take the lead, if not that day, the next day, or the day after. But when their truck hit a mine and they all died, the survivor, the one who didn't die, carried the guilt and still does. That's just one example of that. All right, this ends part 2 of the video. We're going to continue on with part 3, talking about what are some of the things that social workers are involved in helping veterans.